Do not enact the cult of false Adidam. Taken from Recognition of Me is Liberation by Avatar Adidam Samraj. If you are my true devotee, you must necessarily be in right relationship to me. Otherwise, I am unreal to you. If I am unreal to you, you will inevitably create an egoically programmed and necessarily abusive form of pseudo relationship to me. The gathering of my true devotees must create right relationship to me through gifts to me. Right relationship to me cannot be created on any other basis. You cannot create right relationship to me on the basis of mere affirmations. You must offer me real gifts in the form of real results of action in the daily world in which you practice, and real accountably demonstrated growth in right and true practice of the radical reality where the heart. The characteristic self-affirmation of the ego I is I understand, I am committed, and I am working on it. Such a response to me is not and can never be a true gift. Rather, such a response to me is, in reality, an absolute refusal of me. Therefore, my true devotee never relates to me in this dissociative manner. When you relate to me, you must relate to me. You must not babble on about your ego I and or the gloss of something merely out there. To talk about your ego I or to give me some words reflecting your mere out there is to completely avoid me and in reality to abuse me. If the gathering of my devotees only creates a bureaucratized and programmed religion business around me, then I have absolutely no place in this world. In that case, I become totally subordinated to the religion business. And the religion business has absolutely nothing to do with me, even though the religion business may steal the name Adidam for itself. The religion business is what egos do with one another in a state of total detachment or dissociation from me. Study the traditional examples of right and true devotion. You will not ever find real devotees speaking to their spiritual masters in the religion business manner. If a devotee recognizes his or her spiritual master as a true realizer, the devotee will never subordinate his or her spiritual master, just as sane people will never throw a baby around like a game ball. My true devotee who truly recognizes me and who is really aware of my state inevitably practices right and true devotion to me, or the actual turning of all the psychophysical faculties to me, in total subordination of separate self to me. If you are really aware of me, you do not merely ignore me and babble on about whatever you have on your mind or whatever you have been experiencing out there. False devotion is a cover for what is, in fact, a passive-aggressive disposition toward me. The passive-aggressive disposition is truly a form of contempt for me. Such a disposition is totally abstracted from me. Such a disposition allows people to keep their distance from me, to protect themselves from me, and to manipulate me. And that passive-aggressive disposition makes all the practices of the radical reality way of the heart, or radical reality way of Adidam, into mere cultic activities, utterly detached from me. Fundamentally, false devotion is a passive-aggressive feeding game, sucking on my goods, while actually not having anything to do with me. In the feeding game of false Adidam, there is no real transcendental spiritual life, but merely people presuming to be spiritual, completely independent of me. In that case, I am mocked. In that case, I am constantly ripped off by means of the passive-aggressive mantra, I understand, I am committed, and I am working on it. That passive-aggressive mantra simply communicates your resistance to the requirement to function effectively as my devotee. If my devotees do not cultivate right relationship to me, nothing remains of the culture of the radical reality way of the heart, but the pompous speeches of the on-high, passive-aggressive bureaucracy and the boring non-result of the dead-end cult. If you do not cultivate right relationship to me through right gifts, true gifts, you do not connect to me, and therefore you are not actually living the relationship to me. Just as ego is an activity of self-contraction or the avoidance of relationship, right and true devotion to me is an ego-transcending activity of to me turning self-surrender and whole bodily devotional communion with me. If you are my true devotee, you must actually surrender to me. You must actually practice ego-forgetting devotional communion with me, and you must actually serve me in the always here and now. In the cult of false Adidam, there is no real attention for me, or even concern for me. In the cult of false Adidam, the only thing of importance is that you get to play the game some more. In the cult of false Adidam, there is no right relationship to me. Rather, in the cult of false Adidam, there is nothing but egoic, social, organizational, and merely ceremonial modes of false relationship to me. Thus, in the cult of false Adidam, I am entirely subordinated because in the cult of false Adidam, no one devotionally recognizes me and no one prevents me from being abused. In the cult of false Adidam, everyone luxuriates in distance from me. In the cult of false Adidam, everyone merely watches while I am manipulated and abused. Thus, the cult of false Adidam is about itself, not about me, and not about the reality way I have given and revealed. The cult of false Adidam is about the consumer, about the consumers. In the cult of false Adidam, the consumers rule. The consumers pretend that they are involved in devotion to me, but they are merely stealing my goods. In the cult of false Adidam, I am the man in the middle, the cult victim or scapegoat. The dreadful ego drama of destroying the man in the middle is the blackest mummery played by the ego eye. From the very beginning of my formal teaching work, I warned my devotees not to enact this drama in my company. Why was it necessary for me to bring this up at the very beginning? Because that drama is what egos do, and that drama is what cults are. In the cult of false Adidam, people completely detach themselves from the reality way I have revealed and given, merely superimposing the usual life of the ego on the life I call my true devotees to live. The cult of false Adidam is nothing but a program of passing mind forms back and forth to one another. In the cult of false Adidam, no one actually practices devotion to me, for if you truly turn to me, that devotion turns you out of your nonsense. In the cult of false Adidam, people constantly prattle on about how they are doing the devotional prayer of changes in the communion hall. However, the devotional prayer of changes is not a matter of merely sitting around exercising mind forms. When you truly practice the devotional prayer of changes, you have to get off your backside and act. The action is the aspect of the devotional prayer of changes that cultists never want to do. Instead of action, cultists want to do magic, to make pretentious and ego-based prayer utterances into the sky, hoping that gold will fall out of the clouds, such as the phony prayer game. In the true devotional prayer of changes is a change of mind in which you actually serve me rightly, instead of living by your ego patterning. The true devotional prayer of changes is the individual and collective relinquishment of ego patterning. The true devotional prayer of changes is not a form of magic. False prayer is the effort to do magic, but such false prayer is the only form of the so-called prayer that cultists are willing to do. The cultists of false Adidam never practice the radical reality way of Adidam, as I have revealed and given it. The cultists of false Adidam are always busying themselves with revisions of my instruction. And those revisions are in fact nothing but versions of the usual games of egoity, 6 stages worth. The cultists of false Adidam will not practice real and true relationship to me, such that the way I have revealed and given is actually what they are doing. The cultists of false Adidam insist on their revisions in an entirely pig-headed manner. I exist now. In any moment, I already exist. However, the cultists of false Adidam never create the true culture of devotion to me as really existing here and now. The cultists of false Adidam are always having their meetings instead working on themselves to sometime later get around to supposedly relating to me rightly. As my true devotee, you must understand your own cultic tendencies and patterning so that you can be in a position to deal with cultism in yourself and in others of my devotees in a straightforward, no-nonsense manner. That no-nonsense disposition is essential if the gathering of my devotees is truly to be occupied with me right now and not merely occupied with themselves and their me-forgetting busyness. If you, as the gathering of my devotees, do not always accommodate me, and if you have no real and right true gifts to offer me, then there is no possibility of right relationship to me. In that case, all you can do is work on yourselves. The law of right relationship to me is that you must relate to me through gifts alone. You must set me apart, and you must accommodate me rightly without ever subordinating me. However, the cultists of false Adidam never do these things. Instead, the cultists of false Adidam are always only planning to do these things, and therefore the cultists of false Adidam never practice the way I have revealed and given. We understand, we are committed, we are working on it, is nothing but a collective dramatization of passive-aggressive ego behavior. As I have said since the earliest days of my formal teaching work, egos characteristically, and unless a greater influence is brought to bear, inevitably indulge in passive-aggressive behavior around a something that they surround and control. That is what ego does, individually and collectively. That is the mummery of the entire world, and that is the situation of Raymond Darling, as I have depicted it in my Orpheum trilogy. The Orpheum is fundamental teaching and revelation of mine, which I began to write many years before beginning my formal teaching work, because I knew even beforehand how egos were going to relate to me. The passive-aggressive feeding frenzy on the man in the middle is universal egoic behavior. That is what humankind as a collective always egoically tends to do. Thus the cultists of false Adidam play a detached from me passive-aggressive bureaucracy game or cult game in which they do cultic devotionalism or false devotion rather than true devotion. The cultists of false Adidam do sing-alongs to my murty image, but they do not serve me. All subordination of me is desecration of me. Every failure to set me apart desecrates me, mocks me, treats me with contempt, and makes me suffer. That is what goes on in the cult of false Adidam. If cult is not prevented, cult happens. This is inevitable because ego is what is happening in the world. If you do not stop the happening of ego and of cult by means of true Sarvadikari intervention, through right protection of me and right governance of the gathering of my devotees, the ego rules me and all of Adidam. There must be devotees who stand between me and what egos do. Such devotees must never indulge in the sympathy with the ego cave. There is not anything virtuous about cultism. There is not anything virtuous about revising the way I have revealed and given, thereby turning the radical reality wave of the heart, or radical reality wave Adidam, into an ego memory. There is not anything virtuous about people obsessively busying themselves with and constantly talking about the world. I am desecrated by being subordinated. That is why subordination of me should never happen. You must understand, the only by me revealed and given radical reality way of the heart, or radical reality way of Adidam, is an ego-renouncing way. As a practicing culture, the gathering of my devotees must always demonstrate such ego-renouncing and really ego-transcending practice. The gathering of my devotees must not be a cult. The gathering of my devotees must actually and accountably practice right relationship to me. And in order to thus practice right relationship to me, the gathering of my devotees must be rightly governed. Otherwise, ego inevitably does what ego does. The relationship of the gathering of my devotees to me will never be right if that gathering is governed only by a functional bureaucracy. There must be no nonsense Sarvadikari governance, so that the gathering and its necessary institutional order does not abuse me. There must always be individuals who directly prevent me from being abused, because ego will inevitably abuse me if allowed to get away with it. There must always be direct to me intervention by those who do not dramatize egoity on me. Because their devotion or recognition of me is truly profound, my true devotees, including my Sarvadikaris, are always communing with me, and they never violate my person, and they never subordinate me, and they never desecrate me, and they never permit anyone else to desecrate me. False Adidam is a cult based on ego, non-practice and non-devotion. In the cult of false Adidam, people have a portable me facsimile in their mind, in their communion hall, in the book of mind they are reading, but in direct relationship to me, they cannot, or rather will to not, demonstrate real right and true devotional surrender. In direct relationship to me, all egos defend themselves, all egos are detached, and all egos either avoid me or treat me with contempt as a familiar of the insubordinate ego I. That is why real Sabadikari force must always be directly present around me, so that egos cannot get away with their usual dark games. In the cult of false Adidam, people do programs of mummers, devotionalism, always giving themselves license to continue indulging in ego patterning. That is why ego revised Adidam is phony. The cult of false Adidam is nothing but mummery. The cult of false Adidam is saint and ear. Do not bring me trays full of flowers as substitute devotion. Bring me the flowers of accommodation of me. Bring me the flowers of real devotional service. Bring me the flowers of the true devotional communion with me. The true radical reality where the heart, or radical reality where Adidam is now and forever hereafter, here as my avatar self-revealed divine person. Therefore, my true radical reality way of the heart, or radical reality way of Adidam, must now and forever hereafter be practiced on my avatarically self-revealed divine person. Therefore, to practice radical devotion to me is to turn to my divinely avatarically born bodily human divine form. The practice of radical devotion to me is not a matter of turning to some imagined or merely mentally presumed or mind-generated and mentally and egoically supported abstract universal something, which you abstract or detach from me and falsely presume to be me. The only by me revealed and given radical reality way at the heart, or radical reality way of Adidam, is about me recognizing, devotional response, and moment-to-moment ego-surrendering resort to my divinely avatarically born, physically human existence, divinely given here. As my devotee, you are the servant of a God-man, a physically incarnate and divinely self-revealing human being. Therefore, devotional recognition response to my divinely avatarically born, bodily human divine form and person is recognition response to the one and only and divinely self-revealing one, who has become uniquely humanly self-manifested here in order to be, by avataric means, divinely self-revealed to all and all. Indeed, my bodily human appearance in the world is what reveals and establishes the only by me revealed and given radical reality way of the heart, or radical reality way of Adidam, and now and forever hereafter makes the only by me revealed and given radical reality way of the heart, or radical reality way of Adidam, universally accessible and really and practically possible. You are by means of self-contracted action and false presumption, narcissus, psychophysical ego I. Therefore you must be turned to me, in and as my divinely avatarically born bodily human divine form and person. I am outside and beyond yourself, not revealed as an imaginary someone or abstract something who is floating in the sky, but as a concretely existing, concretely born human being. By means of divine avataric birth, I have brought this, my divinely bright human body, or divinely bright human sign of indivisible and intrinsically egoless conscious light, into the conditional human world. Therefore, the only by me revealed and given radical reality way of the heart, or radical reality way of Adidam, is to be practiced in responsive relation to my divine avataric incarnation, not in necessarily egoic association with some idea in your egoic mind. My divinely avatarically born bodily human divine form will always now and forever hereafter be the means whereby my devotees can turn the four psychophysical faculties to me, not to an imagined abstract universal principle, but to myself concretely shown, providing by means of that concrete and divinely self-revealing sign a real and effective focus for the intrinsically ego-surrendering response of the four psychophysical faculties. If the ego is not being actively transcended, then whatever you are doing is not the only by me revealed and given radical reality way of the heart, or radical reality way of Adidam. If you are not focused on my divinely avatarically born bodily human divine form, then whatever you are doing is not the only by me revealed and given radical reality way of the heart, or radical reality way of Adidam. I stand apart from all illusions. When you prattle about how you resort to my universal presence or universal existence, as you egoically presume it to be, you are merely pronouncing a heresy or a form of revisionism. You are merely creating an ego-designed substitute for the only by me revealed and given radical reality way of the heart, or radical reality way of Adidam. By thus abstracting and egoically universalizing me, you would incorporate me into your own mind, your own program of karmic existence. Such heresy has absolutely nothing to do with my avatarically given divine reality teaching. Such heresy is merely what the ego makes of my divine avataric reality teaching. Da.